Alright, so the first lesson, and probably the most important one, is that sign-up bonuses trump everything else. I used to argue with a friend about credit cards all the time. He was obsessed with finding the best cashback card, the kind of card that gives you 2% back on groceries or gas. He ran spreadsheets, compared categories, and proudly told me he was earning $40 here, $60 there, just from his regular spending. Meanwhile, I was chasing sign-up bonuses, and while he spent 6 months grinding his way to an extra $80 in cashback, I applied for a card that gave me 75,000 points just from the welcome bonus alone. And that one bonus covered a $1,000 flight with plenty of points left over. And so that's when it clicked for me. It's not about the slow drip, it's about the front-loaded punch. And that was the moment I realized earning points up front beats chasing cashback every time. Because here's the real math. If you spend $1,000 a month and earn 2% back, you're getting $20 a month or $240 a year. But if you spend that same amount on a card with a 50,000 point bonus worth $1,000, then you just earn more than 4 years worth of value in just a couple of months. So that's the power of upfront rewards. And yes, credit card companies use these massive bonuses to get new customers through the door. But keep in mind that the offers don't stay static. They rotate throughout the year. And that's why seasoned users don't just apply randomly. They wait for a big boost. They track when a card that usually gives 45,000 points suddenly jumps up to 70,000, and that's when they act. And so that's why sign-up bonuses matter so much. They're front-loaded wins that crush anything you'll earn from cashback. And when you know how to time the cycles, you're not playing the same game as everyone else. You're actually miles ahead. But here's the thing. Even with all those sign-up bonuses, you can still lose if you put all your eggs in one basket. Which brings me to my second lesson: flexibility beats loyalty every single time. In my early years, I was all in on Aeroplan. I put a ton of spending on their co-branded cards, racked up points, and booked flights like clockwork. And that worked until it didn't. Because then I hit the devaluation of 2020, and overnight, Aeroplan shifted from a fixed price award chart to a dynamic model, and suddenly, routes that used to cost 75,000 points jumped up to 100,000 points or more. And so I had a stash of Aeroplan points that instantly lost 25% of their value, and there was nothing I could do about it. And that's when I realized being loyal to a single program leaves you vulnerable. But if you collect flexible points like American Express membership rewards points or RBC Avion rewards, you hold the power. Because these meta programs aren't tied to one airline. You can transfer them to Aeroplan, Avios, Flying Blue, Cathay Pacific Asia Miles, and more. So when one program gets gutted, you don't lose, you just adapt. That's why I always earn first and choose later. It's the only way to stay in control. So let's say I'm planning a trip to Europe next summer. What I won't do is rush to convert my MR points to Aeroplan just because that's what I've always done. Instead, I'll check which program offers the best redemption rate at the time I'm ready to book. So if Air France has award space at 50,000 Flying Blue miles, while Aeroplan wants 90,000, then I'll just shift my MR points accordingly. Now, these changes don't just happen once every few years, they're constantly evolving. Avios devalued redemptions on American and Alaska, Marriott inflated its award chart, and Aeroplan quietly removed sweet spots across the Pacific. So if you're locked into just one program when that happens, then you're stuck taking the hit. But if you're holding more flexible points, then you can shift your strategy without losing any value, and that's the edge that keeps you ahead. That's why instead of locking into one hotel or airline just because it feels familiar, you want to build your strategy around flexible points that give you options, because that's the only way to stay protected when everything else keeps moving. Now, once you've got the right cards and you're earning solid value, the next thing to understand is this: annual fees are negotiable, and in many cases, they're avoidable entirely. So there's this idea that once the fee hits your account, you either pay it or you cancel the card. But that's actually not how it works if you know what to say. Here's an example. This Reddit user reached out to Amex Canada through the in-app chat after the annual fee on their Platinum card hit. Instead of bluffing or threatening to cancel their card, they just asked if there were any retention offers available, and they actually got one. They were offered 55,000 membership rewards points after $4,000 in spending over 3 months, and that allowed them to keep the card open. And in this exact same Reddit thread, dozens of other people reported getting the exact same offer, with some of them getting hundreds of dollars in statement credit instead of points. One person was offered 30,000 points for $3,000 of spending, while another was offered $550 outright. But you have to keep in mind that these offers don't go out automatically. You need to ask for them. And so the script here is simple. You just say something like this: "Hi, I saw my annual fee posted and I'm trying to decide if I'll keep the card. Before I make a decision, are there any retention offers available?" So if you've held your card for a while and your spend is tapering off, the bank knows you're a cancellation risk and they'd rather pay you to stay than start over with someone new. But even if you master all of that, you can still blow it all with one massive mistake. And that brings me to the fourth lesson, which is that strong earn rates are meaningless without strong redemption options. Back when I first got into points, I was obsessed with how fast I could earn them. I'd calculate earn rates down to the decimal, and I I optimized every transaction to earn more. And within a few months, I had 50,000 points and I felt like I was winning. But instead of waiting to use them smartly, I used them for a $350 Amazon gift card. It felt smart at the time, but the value was terrible. I was just getting 0.7 cents per point when those same 50,000 points could have covered a $1,000 flight if I used them properly. And that was the moment I learned. It's not just how much you earn, it's also how you redeem. And that's why these days, I don't redeem my points unless I'm getting at least 2 cents per point in value. That's my personal benchmark. So if a flight costs $500 or 25,000 points, then that's a clean 2 cent per point redemption. But anything less than that, and I really pause and reconsider. Because the ugly truth is, most people waste their points. They cash them out for merchandise, gift cards, or statement credits, all of which offer some of the worst redemption rates in the game. But the credit card companies love that because they're giving you way less in return. But that's why it doesn't matter if your card earns 6 times the points on groceries or 10 times the points on dining, because if you're redeeming those points at half a cent each, then the earn rate is almost irrelevant. You're still getting crushed on the redemption. So before you chase high earn rates, figure out where you'll actually redeem those points and how much value you'll get from them. Because in the points world, redemption is where the real magic lies. Now, once you understand that redemption game, there is another trap waiting for you, and this one cost me years of accumulated value. And so my fifth lesson is do not hoard your points. There have been times when I've been sitting on over 1 million points, and again, I thought I was being smart. I had a stockpile for the perfect trip, and it felt good watching that balance grow. And then Aeroplan devalued their rewards chart, and some of my favorite redemptions, like a few routes from Toronto to Europe and Vancouver to Asia, they jumped by 25 to 30% overnight. And my 90,000 point redemptions suddenly cost me 120,000 or more. And so just like that, years of effort were worth significantly less. And that's when I realized points don't grow in value, they actually decay. Just like cash in a high inflation country, points lose purchasing power the longer you hold them. And so now I approach things differently. I redeem my points as soon as I find strong value, not impulsively, but efficiently. For example, if there's a $1,200 flight that I can book for 60,000 points, I take it. I don't sit around waiting for some dream redemption that may never come, because programs shift, charts get updated, and that sweet spot might disappear without warning. Now, that doesn't mean that I rush to convert my points the moment I earn them. I still keep the bulk of my points in flexible currencies like American Express membership rewards until I'm ready to book, because that way I'm not locked into a single program that might devalue tomorrow. MR points hold their value longer because they give me options like Aeroplan, Avios, and Flying Blue, and I only transfer when I know exactly what I'm going to book. So I don't hoard, I don't rush, I hold value in flexible programs, and I redeem decisively when the deal is right. And that's the balance. Protect your points by keeping them liquid, but don't sit on them forever hoping they'll grow, because at the end of the day, points are a tool, not a trophy. And they're meant to be spent, which brings me to the final lesson, and this is the one that ties everything together. Because if there's one thing that this game has taught me over the last decade, it's that nothing stays the same for long. Cards change, programs devalue, governments introduce new rules, banks close loopholes, and what worked last year might already be gone. I can't tell you how many times I've discovered and exploited sweet spots that 6 months later ceased to exist, or they started costing 50 or 100% more. No notice, no alternative, they just disappear, and anyone who wasn't paying attention got left behind. And so that's the final and maybe the most important lesson here. You can't just set your strategy once and forget about it, because the people who win in this space aren't the ones who memorize every detail or chase every last cent. They're the ones who adjust, the ones who know when to pause new applications, when to pivot between programs, and even when to shift from travel rewards to cashback, because this system is always moving. And so the only way to stay ahead is to keep moving with it. That means checking devaluation news, following program updates, keeping track of the points you've earned and when they expire, and being willing to change your plan the moment the landscape shifts, because the rules will keep changing. But if you stay sharp, stay informed, and stay flexible, then you'll always stay one step ahead. So if you want to learn how I'm applying these same kinds of principles to save 10% off every hotel in the world, watch this video next. I walk you through a pretty cool strategy anyone can use that will save you some serious money on your next trip.